This is the Northamptonshire Carers Podcast.
Welcome to October's Northamptonshire Carers Podcast. I'm Adam Wilson, and this month it will be quite a bumper edition actually, because it was the Carers Awards earlier on in October. So there'll be some coverage from the awards ceremony. So you'll hear from Mark Major, our Chief Executive here at Northamptonshire Carers, introducing some of the awards, and Martin Heath from BBC Radio Northampton doing the second half of the awards. And I then will weave into that some conversations with a number of people that received nominations for highly commended or were winners of some of the awards. And one of those conversations with Chantel Jones also touches on something that is certainly of relevance in October, because on the 10th of October it was World Mental Health Day. In addition, October is Black History Month, so to recognise that, and given that the theme is saluting our sisters, we'll hear a poem from Norma Watson. And finally, as they say on all the best programmes, then we'll be having a conversation with Jo Baker from the Springer Social Prescribing Service. She's a social prescribing link worker. That also picks up a mental health theme that's relevant for this month, and is a conversation with Jo about somebody's story or experience of using and benefiting from the social prescribing service. As ever, your feedback is very, very welcome. You can do that via email, which is podcast@northamptonshire-carers.org. You can give us a call on 01933 677 907 and ask to speak to one of the podcast team, which is essentially myself, Catherine or Paul. And if you've got any ideas for future podcast episodes, topics that we might talk about, then I would be certainly very keen to hear. And of course, if you would like to talk to me for a future podcast, perhaps give an insight into your caring role, that would be fantastic. But let's get straight into it with a whole sequence on the Carers Awards 2023.
I suppose where I'd like to start is I'd like to tell you how very humbling it was for us looking through this year's nominations. I'm personally very lucky to have a job that surrounds supporting carers, because it means that I see on a daily basis that most astonishing thing, the uniqueness and strength of the human spirit, and sometimes how the very worst of situations bring out the very best in people. Statistics tell us that we have over 60,000 adult carers and up to 7,000 young carers in the county. That's almost a tenth of the entire population, looking after at least another tenth, because many carers look after more than one person. Without the support they give, today, tomorrow, next week, next month, next year, services would collapse under the strain. Hospitals would be unable to cope, and nursing and residential care be overwhelmed. A rapidly ageing population in Northamptonshire means more age-related illness, and in stark terms, more people caring for more people for more years. Recent Carers UK research tells us that carers save the country £134 billion a year. That would be the cost of replacing the care that they give. £134 billion would be the cost of a second NHS. Carers are a largely invisible army performing heroics every day that underpin so much. However, caring can have other costs to those who do it. Some key health research data tells us that carers are twice as likely to be ill as the general population and have a much greater risk of anxiety and depression. Carers need support, services, and a regular break from the caring role. And we have much to be proud of in Northamptonshire in that respect. Strong partnership approaches between the Integrated Care Board, our two unitary councils in Western North Northants, and NHFT, our acute hospitals and the voluntary sector. And these are seen as a model of good practice nationally, with a host of different services to support carers. In fact, Northamptonshire was the national award winner in last year's Health Service Journal Awards in London. And I would like to thank our statutory partners for continuing to value carers and invest in services for them at times of great challenge for those organisations. When we consider some of those earlier statistics, however, we should pause for thought for a moment, because caring isn't about someone else or someone else's family. It's about yours and mine. Not one of us in this room will be in a family untouched by illness, disability, or frailness. And when that happens, we will marvel at how one person we love is cared for by another person that we love. And sometimes that person's us. Carers don't do what they do for money, credit, or awards. Caring is motivated by love. In Great Expectations, Charles Dickens used the concept of golden threads, things that connect far bigger things together. Carers are a golden thread in our communities, keeping families together, people living in their own homes, and supporting a good quality of life for those looked after. Golden threads are smaller things that keep far bigger things together. Although there are costs to being a carer, there are also returns. As Mahatma Gandhi said, if you really want to find yourself, lose yourself in the support and service of others. As we read through the nominations, we were deeply moved by the bonds of love within those families, the selflessness of those carers, and the challenges they face on a daily basis. But also the intensely moving fact that the people nominating them for the awards were often family members. As judges, we read of people giving up their careers to care, putting family first and their own needs second. Of people who, despite having such heavy caring roles themselves, still find time to support and help other people. Time and time again, we read words like selflessness, loving, amazing, and hero. In the young carers category, and spoiler alert, you might need your hankies at that stage, we read of remarkable children sacrificing their own needs and putting others first, caring and still doing well at school and college, supporting others like them and playing big parts in their local community. Someone said in their nomination that this person is a light in everyone's life. We had a young person described as amazing and a great person, a parent writing that they are so very proud of their child, someone described as a bright, beautiful star. We should be very proud to have these young people in our communities and very proud to have them in the room with us today. As well as the Adult and Young Carer and Young Adult Carer of the Year awards, we have our Shining Award around professionals and some other awards as well. Something around primary care and how vital that is in identifying and supporting and signposting carers. So, let's get this show on the road then. Okay, so we're gonna move on to our first award of the afternoon. Award is GP Accreditation Awards, and this is in memory of Susan Biles. So huge congratulations to both the Pines Surgery, Harbour Road, Northampton, and St Luke's Primary Care Centre in Rushden, both of who have achieved their silver accreditation. And that was despite the pandemic lockdown and all of the challenges that we know that this brought to primary care. Carers Leeds, Emma Jones and Sarah Richards have worked really hard to develop services for carers at the Pines. They put systems in place, greatly improved communication with those on their carers registered, and consulted wherever possible in order to support carers in the most appropriate way. During Carers Week, the practice organised a series of coffee mornings and information sessions to which all carers were invited. The practice have improved support for carers massively over a very short period of time, so congratulations to them. At St Luke's, Jeanette Ashton and Stephanie Duffy have driven forward services for carers at the practice. There is a robust training programme in place where all staff, clinical and admin, undertake a mandatory carers training and are required to renew this every 3 years. There is a clear system in place whereby the practice social prescribed link worker picks up and offers support to carers, including referring patients, The social prescribing link worker has also attended Northamptonshire carer support groups in order to introduce herself, and a regular newsletter is issued and a large and prominent display was put together for Carers Week. Again, congratulations to both, and we look forward to receiving your application for gold.
I'm pleased to be joined by Emma Jones, fresh from the Carers Awards 2023. And Emma, I just wanted to congratulate you on being one of the award winners for the GP Awards. And can you tell me which surgery you're from?
Yeah, thank you. It's the Pine Surgery in Kingsthorpe.
In Northampton.
In Northampton.
Yeah. How did it feel to win today?
It was great. It was lovely, obviously, to receive recognition for the work we've all put in at the surgery for capturing our carers, and obviously the efforts from everybody at the Pines, from reception through to GPs, just being able to support the carers on our list of patients. It's great. It's great to receive.
Brilliant. And I think it was mentioned that gold next, wasn't it?
Gold is definitely next. Yes.
So whenever gold is mentioned, unfortunately, it brings this association with an 80s hit from Spandau Ballet. But sure that getting a gold award is actually a whole lot better than Spandau Ballet's record.
I'm sure it is. Absolutely.
Thank you.
Our next award is our Health and Social Care Champion. And this is in memory of our lovely colleague, Melanie Giorgio. So, first of all, we're going to do a highly commended award. This person has been nominated based on their vital role as part of the Breathing Space team and provides excellent support and advice to COPD patients with a focus on well-being and managing their condition. This makes a positive benefit for carers as they learn techniques and build confidence in supporting the loved one to manage their own condition. And also patients learn how to best manage their condition. One of the fantastic things that we see around these types of services is the value of peer support and bringing people together to form networks themselves, which in turn reduces the strain on services. So, highly commended award for Health and Social Care Champion is Dr. Rob Gale.
I'm joined by Dr. Rob Gale. Just wanted to congratulate you on getting the Health and Social Care Champion of the Year highly commended award this afternoon.
Thanks very much.
Was it a surprise to get that? Were you expecting that? Or?
No, it was completely out of the blue when I got the call to have been nominated, which was very pleasing and unexpected, to be honest. It's very, very nice and good recognition of all the hard work that Breathing Space do.
Could you say something just briefly about your role with Breathing Space?
So Breathing Space is a group for people who suffer with sort of chronic lung conditions such as COPD, and we run across the county, so I provide medical input to those groups. So I'll go along and we'll do talks around managing symptoms such as breathlessness, and we'll also consult with some of the attendees if they want to ask me specific questions.
Yeah, and I suppose that must be really good, people having access to a doctor, so that must be really helpful for people if they've got concerns.
Yeah, I think that's one of the big sort of draws to the groups as well, and people find that really useful. And I guess it's slightly different in a way. It's not quite as formal as perhaps a medical, often a bit more relaxed, and we can have more of an informal discussion, and I can actually find out a lot more as to how people are managing with the condition, which allows me to perhaps provide a lot more advice than I could in meetings potentially. Yeah.
So, moving on to the winner of this award then. The winner of this award has been instrumental in helping Northamptonshire to shape dementia services. For many years, they have supported and created projects that have given focus to those living with dementia and a space for carers to breathe. Through a person-centred approach, they have provided guidance and information related to dementia, which has proven to be invaluable to carers and help prevent crisis. The Northamptonshire Dementia Action Forum brings together many organisations across health, social care and voluntary sector to make our county more dementia friendly. Northamptonshire has seen challenges to get funds for projects in the past, but now great work is going on through the dementia strategy. But through persistence and great partnership working in those times previously, things such as Unity Dem, Brain Gym and carer workshops have become possible. Carers benefit from their knowledge and support at the memory hubs where they have been key to its development, its theory and its evaluation. They support those living with young onset dementia and in particular have helped to be a reassuring ear to their carers. And they are a go-to for helping to understand theories and practice relating to dementia. I have great delight in telling you that the winner of the Health and Social Care Champion of the Year is Professor Jackie Parks.
You're listening to the Northamptonshire Carers Podcast.
The next one is our Shining Star Award. The nomination is for this person's dedicated role as a carer for her father who has dementia and her daughter who has a condition of sickle cell. This person strives for equity for all and initially came to the organisation for carer support herself, attending activities alongside her father. They are confident to speak out about her father's cultural needs and love of music to ensure that he got the maximum benefit from his attendance. They have broken new ground for the organisation with the Norma Watson Sickle Cell provision, the first course of its kind. It has brought awareness within sickle cell community of what it means to be a carer. This person is connected with professionals around the county and country to help Northamptonshire carers to address health inequalities. Sickle cell is a chronic life-impacting condition which is frequently misunderstood. Through her work, she has helped to empower sickle cell warriors to better understand their condition as well as their carers. Juggling her caring role and a life between the needs of her young children, an active father, ensuring the correct support from a network of professionals and support workers is there. They have the dedication to ensure that our sickle cell provision is successful. The winner of this year's Shining Star is Rochelle Rahim.
Let's move on now to the Carer of the Year. We have a couple of highly commenders and a winner for you. So our first highly commended, somebody supporting 5 people with complex health needs, including a severe and enduring mental illness, a physical health condition, a learning disability, Alzheimer's, and a child with additional needs. 5 people with complex health needs. They've been caring for many years and show exceptional levels of care, of patience and encouragement, of strength of character and ongoing resilience. They juggle this caring role with family life and work alongside supporting a member of the family to attend breathing space who would not otherwise attend, and another family with Alzheimer's to continue to live independently, but also provides them with respite from their situation and has them to stay regularly in her home. There's lots to say about this person, who is no relation of mine, despite being called highly commended for Carer of the Year, Joanne Heath. And so to another person who has this year been highly commended. Nominated for their caring role for their wife, who has a dementia diagnosis, and a son who has his own health needs. And as an Asian family of Indian culture, with the expectation of caring and looking after that culture brings with it, they initially, this winner, this highly commended person, tried to care all by himself, providing all of the personal care, as I'm sure many people have tried to do, the medicinal needs, preparing meals, all the housework, and doing this without realising or acknowledging the effect it was having on himself, together with the impact of care for his son. He was still, of course, attending temple religious activities with his wife, making awareness about dementia to the community members. He carried on juggling the caring between his wife whilst in hospital and later in nursing care as far as the end-of-life pathway. Despite all the struggles, he kept on smiling, giving strength emotionally and inspiring others, keeping on going with culturally religious appropriate singing lessons at home involving community members. And like many people, he's been pretty much in denial about this caring role and how important it is and how wonderful all of this is. And so the nominator in this case felt that he deserved recognition. So we recognise today, highly commended in Carer of the Year, Mahendrabi Dodia. So with two truly marvellous stories behind us, who gets the winner award this year? Nominated for her caring role, but also her true grit, her determination, and her fight to get her sister the right diagnosis. Somebody who's shown the highest levels of selflessness and compassion towards her sister's illness, whilst putting her own self on hold. That's a phrase I've heard before, putting herself on hold. Her sister was misdiagnosed and didn't receive the help and treatment that she really needed. And then this winning carer quickly realised that her sister was struggling with a psychotic illness and began to wage a lone battle against professionals to ensure that her sister received the right diagnosis and treatment. And it says that she pleaded and cried in front of professionals but was dismissed. She made lots of phone calls, she sent numerous letters, and it seems she went through the experience that other people have been through, but those letters were simply discarded. She stubbornly refused to give up and continued to reach out to help her sister. It took about 5 years, but she finally got the right diagnosis in April 2023, as a result of which her sister is a changed person, living in the community, in supported accommodation, and starting a fresh life. The person who did all that, went through all of that, made those phone calls, wrote those letters, and refused to give up. Carer of the Year 2023, Chantel Jones.
I'm with Chantel Jones. Hi, Chantel.
Hello.
And you won the Adult Carer of the Year at the 2023 Carers Awards. And I just wanted to ask, to begin with, quite a simple question, really, that what did it feel like to be recognised in that way?
It felt amazing, to be honest with you, because through the last 5 years, personally, I felt like I wasn't doing enough, or I wasn't given as much justice as I wanted to give for her, and then to be like nominated and receiving that award was kind of like a pinnacle of like, okay, it's a milestone. It was like a good all-rounder, like I'm doing well, she's doing well, so it was good to be recognised for the work that I had done, because I was quite critical of myself. So
yeah, and I think that's the thing, isn't it? Sometimes that I mean, we all know really that people that are unpaid carers sometimes don't realise it, but also sometimes go unrecognised.
Yeah.
And I think in the midst of it, I guess it's very easy to have that very self-critical sort of voice that's sort of saying, well, you're not doing enough, or you should be doing this, or whatever.
Yeah.
So then to be recognised, it's actually, well, we'll hear about your story in the support that you have provided for your sister in a mo. But just to get that sort of acknowledgement and recognition must have felt good.
Yeah, definitely. I felt like I was on a bit of a buzz. I feel still buzzed from it, to be honest with you. It's just nice. I've got my little award over there as well, my little certificate.
Brilliant. And would you tell us a bit about your caring role for your sister Nikisha, Chantal?
Yeah, of course. So a good few years ago, she got quite poorly, but she was fine before then, and my role had to basically be that I had to check that she was safe at all times. I had to make sure that she was had little basic things like heating and food, because she kind of lost sense of reality. So in her world, there wasn't no rationale, so I had to be like her lifeline almost, to check that she had everything that she needed, was fed, was warm. Sometimes as well, she'd lose things, so she'd lose her keys a lot. So she lived in a flat on the bottom floor, and she'd leave her window open and would climb out of her window, and she'd be walking around barefoot and stuff, and in her pyjamas, because she didn't have any rationale. So I'd have to go and find her and take her back, and then contact the people in her flat to get keys and help pay her bills. And I just basically had to do everything that you would do in life, but she didn't know how to do it, so I had to live my life whilst making sure that she could live her life safely.
Yeah,
if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. And did it sort of feel a bit weird in the sense that, in a way, I suppose you don't necessarily expect to be doing that for your sister, do you?
Yeah,
really?
Not at all. Especially because when we were younger, even though I'm 2 years older than her, I felt like she was always the more mature one when she was well. So then to kind of be thrown in and have to take on that responsibility, I was like, oh my goodness, like, how do I do this? Because I felt like I had her life in my hands, so I needed to be able to make sure that I could deliver, otherwise she would really suffer.
Yeah.
And I found that difficult because I'm 28, and when it first happened, which was like, to be fair, it was about 7 years ago, but so I would have been like 21, and I found it really difficult to take on such a big responsibility from that age, especially because I was still figuring life out for myself as well. So, but we managed to do it.
Yeah, I think that the figuring life out, it doesn't really.
No.
So you never get to the point. I'm sort of over 50, and I've not quite figured it out yet, but I might do one day.
Maybe.
I just wanted to say as well that were you conscious of that? I guess sort of wanting to support your sister, but I don't know, not overstep the mark too much in a way.
Definitely, because at the beginning, my sister was very like responsive to me helping her, but then with her being misdiagnosed and she was kind of left by the system and the services, I think eventually, because I was the only one helping her, I think she almost was starting not to trust me because I was constantly saying like, have you taken your medication, have you done this? And that sibling relationship kind of fizzled out, and I became somebody that was a bit almost controlling. That impacted our relationship because it wasn't like going to see my sister and hang out. It was like going to see my sister and be like, right, it was always a crisis when I saw her.
Yeah.
And I think when she saw me, it wasn't like oh, my sister's here. It was more like she was a bit more on edge kind of thing, because it's like, oh no, my sister's here. Like, I don't know. She didn't have that rationale, I guess.
And I guess that you're right, that it's not just sort of going and having a cup of coffee and a chat with your sister like you might maybe have done in the past.
Yeah.
It's kind of more, I suppose, about you wanting to make sure that things are okay for her, which might be perceived by her as checking up on her.
Yeah, exactly.
In a way which must have felt awkward, I guess.
Exactly, especially with her illness being at the time, well, now we know what it is now, but at the time she was like extremely paranoid. So for me to go in and be like, have you taken your medication? Why is your heating not working? Where's your food? She's kind of thinking, why are you forcing this all on me? Because she didn't have that part of her brain that could understand that I was doing it to make sure she was safe and whatnot, like she does now.
Yeah. And I'm sort of thinking that obviously you've got life yourself and trying to navigate your way through that and looking out for your sister and kind of stepping in and supporting her, and probably other commitments, work and
definitely
and stuff. So it must have been quite a juggling.
Yeah,
act,
it was a big juggle because I work full time, and my hours are quite long as well. So sometimes I do 9:30 till 9, 10 till 7, 9 till 8 or whatnot. So like to go to work and in my job, I'm a hairdresser, so I've got to be on top form and and I've got clients that might not be feeling good, and my job is to make them feel good and make them have confidence, to be able to give my clients 100% of me, and then to go home and then give my sister 100% of me. I had not much for myself, so then I started to struggle with my own health because I wasn't putting me first, I was putting my sister and then my job.
Yeah, I'm not surprised that happened, because I think that I sometimes see it as almost like running on empty.
Yeah, exactly.
In a way, and I think that you know, I know you know this from your own experience, that one of the things is that your needs and what's going to be good for you and your own life, whether that be work or outside of work, kind of takes quite a back seat, and it sounds like that's what happened.
Massively. It was little things as well, like throughout that period I couldn't really go anywhere further than Northampton because so I wasn't doing holidays and stuff because I needed to be close. So if somebody was to message me and say, I've seen your sister, she's in the state, can you come and get her? I needed to make sure that I could always get her. So I wasn't living my life because I needed to be there for her and my job. Yeah, that's right. And that's kind of where that caring role kind of takes over, doesn't it, really? So yes, I think that it's must have been incredibly difficult. Yeah, definitely.
And the other thing that I'm conscious of is that you had to do quite a bit of challenging of professionals within health and social care to make sure really that your sister got the support she needed, and I think the right diagnosis as well.
Yeah.
Was that right?
Yeah, correct. That was it. I think I remember, like, at the beginning of it, I was just at home and my sister rang me and said that she's in hospital, and I was like, oh, okay, like what's going on? And she said she's hit her head. So I think it must have been about 1 a.m. in the morning. So I rushed to A&E and I was sat with her and I was like, you look fine, like, what do you mean? And she whispered to me and she said, I've got a microchip in my brain. And I was like, what? And she said, yeah, there's a microchip in my brain, but I know that if I tell the staff there's a microchip in my brain, they won't believe me. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to tell them I've hit my head, because then they'll give me a brain scan. And then I was just sat there, like, because it was the first ever experience I've had with something like that. And I just sat there confused, and I rang my mum, and I was like, Mum, please, I don't know what to do. So my mum came, and then my mum spoke to a staff member on the side and explained and said, look, I think that she's got psychosis or something. So then the mental health team in the hospice, in A&E, spoke to my sister, and then they spoke to my mum and myself afterwards and said, look, I don't think she's got psychosis, because she knows that what she's saying sounds abnormal, and for her to know that shows that she has got rationale. So therefore, we're not going to treat it like that, but we'll get her to go to the doctors tomorrow. We'll sort the appointment and get some medication. So the next day, me and my sister went to the doctors, and my sister was so distracted. She was like looking around the room, really confused, and the doctor actually like snapped at her. She was like, I'm trying to help you here. You need to listen to me, which in hindsight, I don't think was a really good way to be. I gave her antidepressants and kind of sent her on her way, but then it just spindled out of control from there. She started to say that she asked me to go into town with her so she could sell her phone, her laptop, because she thought it was bugged. And I was walking through town and I was like, where are we going? And she said, I need to sell it. And I said, why? And she went, it's bugged. And then I started asking her questions, and then she was like, they're listening to you, you need to stop. Yeah. And then she went really quiet with me. And I started logging all of this stuff that was happening. And then I think she ended up getting really poorly, and she went into a hospital, and she was there for a few days, and they basically was analysing her, saying what they thought was going on. And then they rang me and said that they were going to discharge her, but they didn't know what to diagnose her with. And then my mum was like, well, how are you going to discharge her? You don't know what you've diagnosed. Like, we don't know. We're going to just be in square one again. And then the doctor was like, hang on. And then they rang her back and said, okay, we've diagnosed her with a personality disorder. And we were like, okay, we've got an understanding. And then I think they actually, previous to that, they said that it was psychosis and like a personality disorder. So they involved her with NSTEP. And for 2 years of her life with NSTEP, things got steady. Like, she calmed down. She had somebody regularly come in to see her. NSTEP works really, really well with her, actually.
That's good.
But then she got to an age where I think after 2 years, they have to discharge you from that care, because they see that you don't have psychosis anymore, and it doesn't normally go on for that long in their eyes. So they discharged her, and they involved her with the community mental health team. She was assigned to a CPN and whatnot, and that's when things got really bad. So I think she was spotted in town, and she'd poured a hot coffee over herself, and she had braces, and she'd like snapped the brace, and she was in a real distressed state. And a member of the public called the hospital, and they came out to assess her. And then she went back into hospital, but because of her diagnosis before, they didn't treat her for what she was present with at that moment in time. They kind of looked at her notes and was like, right, this is what we're dealing with based on the history. And so therefore I felt that they didn't give her much justice. They kept her on her antidepressants, and they kind of kept her in for a few days, and then they just let her go again. And this I found quite distressing, because I was like, you're diagnosing her with the same thing, with the same medication. This is the second time she's been in. There's no progress. So I think we're looking at it from the wrong angle. So then we were kind of, basically by then I was left to just me and my sister. So I had to take matters into my own hands and just make sure I could fully protect her. The council were really good, actually. They assigned her a housing support officer, and sadly the housing support officer did more than anybody had ever done for us. So we had like the crisis team, the mental health team, A&E, but it was the housing officer from the council that actually was really good. So he would come round every Monday with us, and I felt safer then because I had somebody with me, because before it was just me on my own. And by this point, so this is probably like 2-3 years later, her delusions became really strong. So if I was on my own, I'd be sat there and she'd like smash all of her mirrors because her reflection wasn't her. She started like, I'd put the TV on just to do a bit of normality, and she'd turn the TV up really loud and have like an outburst. And she started getting not violent, but getting quite aggressive. And I didn't want to not be with her because I needed to be with her, but I felt a little bit unsafe at this point. So to have the housing officer be with me and help me, I instantly felt better. And then she ended up going into hospital again because I think somebody again had seen her in public, and she was like shouting to members of the public. Well, she wasn't shouting at members of the public, but she was shouting to the voices in her head,
responding to those.
And this is when we realised that this was getting out of hand now, because now other people were looking at her and thinking, and they're almost scared of her, and you know, it spiraled, like it just completely spiraled. So she ended up going into hospital again. I think it was just before Christmas Eve. So basically what had happened is she did something, I can't remember what she did, but she did something that led her to be taken in by the police, section 136. So they took her to the hospital that she was in previously, and they rang me and said, look, we've got your sister, she's in section 136, blah blah blah. And in my head I was like a relief. I was like, okay, finally, like, even though it's a 24-hour hold, this is, other people are seeing it now. That
must have felt like maybe that was a turning point to get some support coming in that she needed. Yeah,
because the other times when she was going into hospital, it was just like almost informally going in, whereas this time the police had done it. So I thought, okay, if the police are involved, we're going to be safe now. So I was checking up on her that day, and then I rang on Christmas Eve to ask how she was, and the staff said, oh, we've actually discharged her. And I was like, wait, what? What do you mean? And she said, yeah, we've discharged her. She's on her way home. And I was like, but she doesn't have any keys, and she doesn't have any belongings. Like, she doesn't have a phone. So how do I know where she's going? And they said, oh, we've told the taxi driver to take her to her flat. And I was like, okay. So they said, I'll just suggest that you wait outside her flat, and then when she gets there, you'll have her or whatnot. So I was waiting, and then it got to like half an hour later, and I rang again. I said, look, my sister's still not here. And they were like, oh, she's on her way, just be patient. An hour later I called and I said, look, I'm really worried. And then the lady was like, oh, I'm really sorry. Yeah, we did get the taxi, but your sister ran away. And I was like, oh. And then they said, yeah, she's run away. And I said, well, have you called the police? And they said, yeah, we've already called the police. And I said, but I've called you guys 3 times. Like, how come you didn't tell me this? So then the police had to like look at loads of CCTV footage to see where she had gone. And she was just wandering around without her shoes on and whatnot. So the police brought her back to the hospital. My mum went and picked my sister up, and my mum was like crying and begging, like, please don't discharge her. We really need your help. And the lady, the ward manager or matron, came out and just said to my mum, like, we haven't got any room for her here. There's nothing wrong with her. If you don't take her home now, I will get security and we'll get you both out. Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. So it was really bad. It was super bad. So we took her home, and my mum had to basically lock my sister in her house for 2 weeks because it was over the Christmas period.
Yeah.
So when I tried to call for support, everywhere was closed. So we couldn't get anything. So we had to keep her in the house. And then my mum so she had time off work. And then my mum had to go into work for a few hours. And my mum came home, and the downstairs windows were wide open, and my sister had climbed out the window and was found like hanging around near a bridge.
Yeah.
So a member of the public had called the police, then the police had called me, and then took my sister to my house. So I had her, and my sister was just so unaware. She just had no idea what she was doing. So I was just like, at this point we were a mess, and my mum
I'm not surprised.
Yeah, it was just really bad. And my mum had to back away a little bit from my sister because my sister, like I said earlier, was getting quite like aggressive, not physically, but her language. And my mum suffers real bad with her anxiety, so it was making my mum poorly.
Yeah.
So I kind of had to step up a little bit more. So at this point, it really was just my sister and I was like, okay, it's just us now. Like, I'm going to get you through this. We're going to do this.
Yeah.
So I started documenting everything. And then I think I called the mental health team. So I called her CPN, and I said, look, I really need you to help me now. Like, this is getting really bad. Nobody's listening to me. Please, can you help? And she just said, Chantal, the reason that your sister's having these delusions is because she's taking drugs. And I was like, well, no, she's not. And she went, yes, she is. So we can't actually help her until we know what drugs she's taking. So we need to put her on a drug and alcohol misuse course. And I was like, look, I go to my sister's flat pretty much every single day, and she's not organised. Everything is everywhere. If she was taking anything like that, I would know. And she was like, no, she is. So and then I realised this is why nobody's listening, because they just think that she's taking drugs. And to be honest with you, a really sad thing that I've learned from this is when my sister would start to like sleep on the streets and just be on the street at all times because she felt unsafe in her flat. And she also thought at this point that she had a time bomb in her head. So she was scared that if she was in her flat and it went off, nobody would find her. So she started sitting on the street, so she was around people. But I realised then, at this point, because she was there for so long, people walk past her and just think that she's on drugs. So people started not taking it even more seriously. And that made me really frustrated because I was like, how can I prove that she's not? But nobody listened. So anyways, we ended up getting her to go back into hospital informally, back to the same hospital with the same psychiatrist. And we had a ward round, and he said to me that he's going to discharge her. She's taking drugs. They've smelt cannabis on her. And I said, this isn't true.
Yeah.
And and he was like, no, it is. Like, ask the nurses. And I was like, yeah, but you've not done a drug test, so you can't just say that that's the case.
Yeah.
And he was like, no, it is. So they discharged her, and it just was becoming this big mess of like people assuming that she was taking drugs, that she was doing it for attention, and that there isn't a mental health illness there, and so therefore, like, basically told me to back away. So the psychiatrist said, the best thing you can do is back away from your sister because you're enabling her to do this because she's doing it for attention and you're giving it to her. And that kind of just fueled me, to be honest. I was like, you're so wrong. You're so wrong. Like, I know her well, really well. And I know that this isn't her. And I know that she had a job before. She worked at the NHS. She had friends. She's now become a really isolated, scared girl with no support from the ones that are supposed to support her. So she was in and out of hospital a few times, and they stopped inviting us to ward round. They'd do ward round without inviting me, and then just doing their own thing without keeping me in the loop, basically.
Okay. I mean, it must have felt like you were just completely on your own, and you were asking for help, and people were not listening and excluding you.
Yeah, excluding me from everything. And then I remember ringing up the hospital and saying, like, look, why have I not been invited to the ward rounds? I don't know what's going on with her progress. She hasn't got a phone, so she can't communicate with me. And the nurse was like, so-and-so doesn't always involve the families in ward round. She actually openly admitted that to me.
Right.
And I was like, well, surely that's the biggest part of this care. And she said, yeah, but this doctor likes to know the patient before involving family. And I said, yeah, but he does. He's met her before. But they didn't listen. So then I called up again and I said, look, I would like to have the CEO's contact information. I want to know how I can complain because this isn't good enough. And the lady was like, I can't give you that. And I said, well, can I have the ward matron's email address? She's like, I can't give you that. I need to ask her permission first. And I was like, but I'm a family member of somebody that's in your care at this moment in time. Yeah. But because she wasn't sectioned, she'd never been sectioned, bearing in mind this was always informal, it was their way of being like, we actually don't need to involve you, kind of thing. So what happened then is I wrote to PALS and I complained and I wrote down all these issues. And basically what I discovered from it is the hospital's response is that they never had any record of the phone calls that I had made them, that what I was saying wasn't true and what the incidents were. And that made me I was even more fueled then, because I was like, well, actually, that you're going against your own policies, because you're supposed to be recording these phone calls, and I've got evidence of the phone calls, so why haven't you? Why haven't you got all the notes and stuff? But then they kind of just disregarded my complaint, to be honest. But that led me to a support group, which is Carers Corner, and Carers Corner was like my light in all of this.
Right. Was that one of the things that gave you the support to get through what must have been an incredibly stressful and quite a long process?
Yeah, exactly. Because like even more was happening in this period, but because it was it's like my brain has almost suppressed it all. Like it's really bad. So it took me a good few months actually to build up the confidence to go to Carers Corner. And at this point, I kind of lost a lot of, almost not friends, but I'd lost my relationship with people, because all I was talking about was my sister, and they didn't want to keep hearing it all the time. So I started to feel really, really alone and really quite down. So I think it was a Thursday morning, maybe. I was off work and I was like, I'm going to build up the confidence. I'm going to go to Carers Corner. But in my head, I was thinking, oh, people don't want to listen to me talking about this. It's like negative. They don't want to hear this. Like, I don't want to put this on them. I also don't want to slate the experience, because I don't want other people to lose hope. So I had all this in my head. And I was like,
lots of conflicting sort of thoughts by the sound of it.
Exactly. And I think that stubbornness in me was like, I can do this alone. I can do it. And then I was like, no, I can't do this anymore. So I went to Carers Corner, and Dr. Krishna was there, and Sharon Gibbard as well. They were both absolutely amazing. And I just spoke about my story, and I said, look, at this point, my sister is walking around aimlessly with no shoes on, like in the winter when it's snowing. She isn't eating. She's like completely gone AWOL, basically. And I don't know what to do anymore. And they basically said, we're going to help you. And they gave me loads of advice on what to do. And they just had my back. And I felt like I had a family. Like I was like, I've got a family here that are going to support me. They really understand, because they've all experienced it. And all the other carers there as well. Like, and I remember just being in this meeting and I just burst into tears. Like, probably like tears and snot everywhere. And they're just like watching me. And then they introduced me to Northamptonshire carers. And that was like, I think that just was a big turnaround for me personally at that point.
Must have felt such a massive relief after reaching out for help by people that you would expect to provide it. And it not being forthcoming, or them having a different angle, and also being excluded as well. It must have felt kind of almost like a punishment for challenging.
Yeah, do you know what? That's
the system.
I think that's a really good point. I think I've never really thought about it like that. I think that is why I was excluded, is because I had an opinion. And I think that they didn't like that, and I'm aware that I can be really intense when I'm really passionate. So, and I think they were just like, if we do this ward round, it's going to go on forever, because we're not going to give her what she wants, because we don't believe it. So then to have a group believe me, it gave me the power to go on, because I was like, this group believes me. I'm telling them everything that I've told the psychiatrist, and they have a completely different answer to me than what this person does. So I've got one person within the system telling me that I'm wrong, and I've got about 10 other people that are telling me I'm right. I'm going to go with that, because it clicked with my heart was the right thing to do.
Was there an element of peer support as well, in the sense that if there were other carers there that were also sort of talking about their experiences, did that kind of spur you on a bit as well?
Definitely, because at this point I started researching about symptoms that my sister was displaying. So I was researching lots, and I'd come to the conclusion that she'd had some kind of psychosis, schizophrenia. So when I was listening to other carers talking about their loved ones, telling me their symptoms and what their loved ones were doing, I would say to them, oh, like, what's their diagnosis? And they'd say, oh, it's schizophrenia, or it's psychosis. And I was like, but this resonates with me. So why is my sister being wrongly medicated and wrongly diagnosed with something else when it's not working? Like, we need to try this other stuff. So that's what I was then fighting for, was like, because I know it isn't all about the diagnosis, but it is when it comes to the medication. So like, for instance, with my sister, she was being given stuff for like mood stabilizers. But if you've got psychosis and schizophrenia, you need antipsychotics. So that's where it was like the fuel from listening to other carers and their medication, that I needed to fight for the right medication. So I'd learn at this point, in order to get through to the right person, I need to stop talking about the diagnosis and start talking about the treatment. So I think I ended up getting her back into hospital, and again, same hospital, same psychiatrist, and I said to the psychiatrist, is it okay? Because at this point they were actually involving me in ward round, but I think it's because I'd done my complaint. I was calling them every single day.
Yeah.
And I said to this psychiatrist, I had a list of things to why I think that the diagnosis was wrong, but I didn't say that. I just said, this is what I've experienced, like disorderly, disorganised, blah, blah, blah. And I'd gone on and explained all of this. And I said, do you think it would harm if we was to just try this particular medication? Because I think then if you can see that there's a result in a positive way from the medication, then maybe they might listen to me. The psychiatrist was like, yes, okay, I will listen. We'll have a look at changing the medication. And I just was like, eureka, like, yes, finally, like, they've changed it. They're going to change it. They're listening to me. And then I called them, I think that was on like a Friday maybe, I can't remember. Then I called them the next day and I'd said, how's everything going? And they said, oh, we've discharged her. And I was like, what? And I was like, yeah, we've discharged her. She's on a taxi on the way home. Right. And I was like, please, you're joking me. So you can imagine.
Yeah,
just
absolutely, yeah. After sort of the breakthrough moment, really.
Yeah, and it was the next day. And I'd said, well, how do you know that she's got hot water, she's got heating, she's got food? You've not called me and said we're planning to discharge her. You've just done it. So then at this point, I went to Carer's Corner and I was like, right, I am not taking no for an answer now. So it took about a year to like capture her and get her to a hospital. And I mean, I know it just sounds like a big like mess at the moment because it really was.
Yeah,
but
yeah, that was your experience and your sister's experience, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was just like up, down, up, down, up, down. But fortunately, so I had Chris Miller from Northamptonshire Carers, and she was ringing me every Monday, like, right, what's the plan of the week? Like, what are you doing now? Like, she was just giving me like the energy to like go on, Chantal, like you can do it. And it just felt like I was just pushing like a brick wall. I was just like pushing it with all my might, like, just somebody please listen to me and believe me. And then I'd found out that she had been sectioned again under 136 by the police. So I actually emailed Dr. Krishna and I was like, look, can you help me, please? Is there any way you can just assess her? Because this is getting out of hand. And I didn't hear anything back. And then I think he actually did go and assess her, and they agreed to put her under a section 2 and monitor her closely and did full blood tests, drug tests, and she absolutely had no drugs in her system, which was just like, I told you.
Yeah, a confirmation of what you've been saying all along, and people were not listening.
Not listening to me. So to be told, like, yep, there's no drugs in her system, there's no, like, liver damage, which means that she's not drinking loads, like, none of that is the reason to these delusions. So now we've drawn a line under that, let's treat the delusions. And it was, again, Dr. Krishna was a psychiatrist. He really helped us. He listened to us. And actually the mental health team rang me afterwards and said, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry we didn't believe you. Always go with your heart because this is a big problem and we're going to fix it. So she was in hospital for about 6 months and was put on antipsychotics, was treated for what I thought it was, is diagnosed now with what I knew it was. And she's done a complete turnaround and is like, I can actually go and sit with her and we just sit and watch Come Dine with me together and eat food together, whereas before it wasn't.
Sounds like it
that.
Feels like you got your sister back.
Yeah, I've got her back now, but it was because like I just had to keep going and going and going, and I was like a broken record, and it became really quite nasty. Like I'd have messages at 2 a.m. from people saying, I've just seen your sister, she's in a state, does she have any support? And that would make me feel really sad because I was like, I'm really trying, but I can't be with her 24/7 because I've got to work, I've got to pay my bills, and I've got to have money to pay her bills, and I've got to have money to pay for her food. I couldn't do it all. So when she was in hospital and she was actually treated for fairly and properly and like got the right diagnosis and the right medication, it's kind of unbelievable actually to think that don't ever give up kind of thing. When you know, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm just sort of thinking that from your experience, and it sounds like it was horrendous and took a long time to actually be listened to. you've learnt a lot through that experience, and I think other people will get from this that actually keep going, keeping on, if you possibly can, and get some support as well to keep your mental health sort of in the right place. But I'm thinking that there must be some things that you feel from this experience that you wouldn't want other people to go through. So is there anything you think might be changed that would
oh gosh, massively
improve things?
So it was like little things. Like I remember before my sister was in like hospital the final time with the right treatment, when she was with getting the wrong treatment in the morning before ward rounds, when I was finally invited, I used to have to watch YouTube videos on particular illnesses so I could do pros and cons, and so because I knew what they would say to me, so I had to be like, right, well, you're saying this, but I know that that's not true, so because I've been, do you know what I mean? I had to educate myself. And I feel like for carers that are doing that, like, just go with your heart, go with your gut, you know what's best. And I think that the problem is that the systems don't communicate with each other. So like the police force aren't communicating with like the hospital staff, the nurses aren't communicating with the psychiatrists aren't communicating with the families, like nobody's communicating with each other.
And things aren't being recorded from what you're saying. If your contact where you're saying that I'm registering this concern, or I don't feel this is perhaps the right treatment or whatever, if that's not being picked up, you know, there's a big problem, isn't there, in the system?
Exactly. And I think as well, if they aren't recording things properly, not following the procedures properly, and I know that this is because they are so underfunded and short-staffed that they can't deliver things properly. And also I think that something needs to be changed on the sense of like families having more of a say, because when a patient who has got psychosis during that 7 years, they're being treated that they have capacity, which she didn't, and we know that now. Because they're being treated with capacity, they're not listening to families. And I think something needs to be changed, where if a family so my sister would say, my sister's my main person, they should listen to their loved ones, and they should have a meeting with the loved ones. I know with the psychiatrist she had before Dr. Krishna, I asked him for a second opinion when she was with him, and he was like, okay, I'll get NSTEP in. And I said, okay, can I meet with NSTEP before? Because I don't want NSTEP to go on your notes. I want NSTEP to go on my experience. And they were like, yeah. And then I called up like a few hours later, and they said, oh yeah, NSTEP's already been in. And I said, well, nobody's contacted me. And the lady said, oh, NSTEP don't actually involve families. And I was like, hang on a minute, that can't be right. And the funny thing is again, being a hairdresser, I have a client who actually works at NSTEP, and I spoke to her about it, and she went, Chantal, that's not true. She said NSTEP want to speak to family members. So it was just like his miscommunication, wrong data. It was just a complete mess. So it just shows what a mess that the system is in. And
I think that there's that sort of point, isn't there, about, you know, often people that are going through issues with their mental health themselves, in a way, they're often their own best experts. They kind of know when things are going wrong sometimes. I think that family, likewise, that are very heavily involved as you were, and your mum clearly was as well, that actually, if you're going to get a fuller picture, a holistic approach,
exactly,
that might actually put all the pieces of the jigsaw together.
Exactly. It's almost like all you want them to do is have like everybody just sit in a room together and just communicate. So the community nurse, the social services, like all of that just needs to come together. And actually that's what I had to do in the end. In the end I had to, so again, before Dr. Krishna, the last little point, I had to contact social services, contact her housing support officer, contact Chris Miller from Northamptonshire Carers, and get these really important people that were in our lives to come together and all talk. And that's what I did. So I was contacting everybody. I was like, right. And it was funny because none of them knew where we were at. So it just proved that nobody was communicating. So I was the communicator. I was like, right, like, I'm going to have to get this together. So we all had a meeting, and it was actually like A&E staff, police, like big meeting all together to discuss how out of hand this was getting. So then that's what it's missing. Like, it's missing a group thing. And don't get me wrong, like, some psychiatrists, Dr. Krishna, who is brilliant, does that all the time. Like, I know he does. But I think in other areas...
It's not across the board.
It's not across the board.
Yeah.
And I think it needs to be, because if that's in there, then it will be a lot better. Like, it will go so much further.
And I'm just conscious as well that the number of times that your sister was discharged and you kind of learnt about it by chance, which must have been quite frightening to hear that your sister was in a taxi heading home. But I'm also thinking, picking up on what you're saying, Chantal, that it didn't seem often to be any kind of pre-discharge meeting that you were involved with, because... as you were saying, that was the electricity, hot water and such like essentials for your sister. What was the support
none of it
that was going to follow on from that discharge? And it sounds like that was very clearly missing.
They didn't check any of that. They literally would discharge her. They wouldn't know, like, they wouldn't have a family member come pick her up or a family member be at the flat. So she'd go from being in hospital for a few weeks to going, not even going home because she did a runner, but going home. And if I didn't know, there would be no hot water, there'd be no electricity, she wouldn't have been able to get into her flat. She had nothing. And that's the big issue, is that there wasn't any, like, package at the end, no support package at the end for her. And I remember as well, there was this time when, again, my sister was really poorly and she took herself to A&E, but she had no money. So she was in a taxi, completely under psychosis. And then what had happened is the taxi driver took her to A&E and she didn't have the money to pay, and it was about 2 a.m. in the morning. So the taxi driver took her phone for payment. So she had no phone, was in A&E.
Right.
So it was just nothing. And if A&E just contacted me and said, we've got your sister, but nothing, nobody...
would have been a different outcome, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it would have been a different outcome, but nobody was communicating. I think that's one of the biggest things. And also medication, like with a community nurse, she wasn't checking her medication. So my sister she went months without medication. I'd have to go around at the end in the morning and be like, right, take your medication. And that shouldn't be my job. It should have been the community nurse's job. It should have been it should have been their job, not mine, but it was on me whilst having a full job. Like, that's a big responsibility.
And what about medication reviews? Because it sounds like that didn't happen.
No, they didn't.
What I mean is this the right medication?
The medication she's on now is the right medication, but the medication she was on before wasn't right. And I remember calling the community nurse and saying, can we have a review for a medication? And the community nurse actually said to me, we don't have a doctor at the moment in Campbell House. We don't have a doctor, so we can't review it. So they just left her on that medication. So it's like, it was wrong. They had no doctor to review it. And also bearing in mind, my sister couldn't attend, she wasn't attending appointments because she couldn't think to. If you said to her, you've got an appointment on Monday at 2 p.m, she wouldn't go because she lives for that minute of that day. And the best way I can explain the illness that she had or is that it was like she had dementia, which explains the diagnosis she has now. But it was like she had dementia, but she was deemed capacity. So therefore, reviews, nothing was happening. Nobody was checking her medication. Nobody was checking it was right. Nobody at the time was checking, like, blood tests to make sure it wasn't interfering with anything. She was just been told, right, here's medication, like, jack of all trades, master of none, here's your medication, you'll be fine. And that was it. Whereas obviously now that's not the case.
Sure.
But it took that long to get to the right.
Because it was about a 5-year period.
5-year period,
It's a heck of a long time to keep yourself going. Apart from anything else, isn't it, really? I'm thinking about the degree of doggedness in terms of pursuing things for the benefit of your sister's health and well-being. The passion, really. And seeing what's wrong. That I'm just wondering, have you ever thought, well, actually, maybe I might like to work in mental health and sort of bring about be part of a revolution to change some of these things?
I think about it literally every single day. Like, I feel like I feel like a revolution needs to happen in mental health, and I feel like I have a passion, like in my heart, in my belly, to just push everything and get everything going for the right way. Like, I really care about people, and it's like, even like from my sister I've learned a lot. Like, she's taught me a lot, like little things, like when I go to work and I see the people that are rough sleepers on the street, and I'll like chat to them, and I just think a lot of them are taking drugs or are drinking alcohol, but it's not because they're drug addicts or alcoholics. It's because they've got mental health issues and they've fell through the cracks of the system, and now they have become that. And because of that, they're not being treated for their mental health because they're taking drugs or drinking.
Yeah.
And there's a massive gap where it's like, it needs to come hand in hand. Like, being an alcoholic is a mental health issue. It's not because you choose to drink it. There's something going on mentally, and that needs to be treated seriously. I think that's what we're missing.
And I think that you sort of pinpointed something there, which is that people can have a range of different issues going on for them. One might influence another. There might be a physical health issue as well as issues with the mental health, and maybe something around addiction.
Yeah.
But you can have all of those in the same person.
Definitely. And I think that's a good point. Like, I think we're a bit old school in the sense that it's like, okay, this person has a personality disorder, but that doesn't mean they don't have anything else. Like, a mental health illness is a complexity of different things, and I think like we need to treat it as a complexity of different things. Try different medications, you know, like really explore it. And I think that we're not, and I think it's because they are so underfunded and short-staffed that they treat patients almost like at the moment in time like milk on the shelf with an expiry date. It's like, right, get them in, get them out. And it's almost like that approach is actually just making that one person go in and out, in and out, in and out loads of times.
It's a kind of revolving door thing, isn't it, really? Whereas if a revolutionary idea, I know, but if you were to take the time to listen to what you were saying back in time over that 5-year period, and then get a comprehensive picture of how things really were, then it could have saved a lot of stress, a lot of resources, actually.
Yeah, definitely.
And that actually a greater level of well-being sooner for your sister and for you and your family, really.
Yeah. I just wish that, I don't know what could be done to just like, I don't know what to just make people more like in the system, more like empathetic and less judgmental. Like I think like with my sister, when she was in hospital the last few times, I felt that it was all very judgmental on her behalf. Instead of treating her as a poorly person, they judged her. And I think that's wrong. And it's the same as when you walk past down the street and you see a rough sleeper, you're taught to judge them and not help them. And I think that we shouldn't judge, we should just help. And I think that that's what's lacking, is we're judging, we're not communicating. We need to like form something where we just look at somebody and help them. And somebody said to me yesterday, like, we should stop looking at people that are in those situations as people and look at them as they were somebody's baby once. And that somebody said this to me yesterday, and I thought, wow, that's so true. Like, when you see somebody on the street, that was somebody's baby once. Like, we have to look after them.
You're right. And I think the other thing as well is that it could be us.
It could be us, yeah.
It could be us at any point. And the other thing is that often there's a kind of deficit model, what people's problems are, what they can't do. Sometimes it's good to look at it from the other angle. In fact, most of the time it's good to look at it from the other angle. Well, yeah, okay, there are some problems in this area, but let's look at what you can do. Look at it on a strengths-based sort of basis. And maybe that might lead to some better outcomes.
Yeah, exactly.
With everything that we've been talking about from your and your sister's experience, Chantal, then it brings me to the fact that 10th of October is World Mental Health Day, and the theme for that this year is mental health is a universal human right. And certainly a lot of what you've said about how perhaps in society we might view people and that we could change that does seem to resonate with that. But I just sort of wondered what your thoughts are around that theme about mental health as a human right taking into account
Yeah.
being alongside your sister through this experience that was positive in the end, but took an awful lot of input on your part and a lot of stamina, I would think, to keep going. Is there some more work to be done?
I think there is definitely more work that needs to be done. I think we are a little bit behind, but I think, like what you're doing today, I think things like this is really going to help. And if we can just kind of spread the message that we all suffer in our own way, we all know somebody that has suffered. Maybe we're not almost as educated enough on what to do in those situations and whatnot, but I think the message is to just always be kind and know that it could happen to anybody and it's not anybody's fault. There's no shame for it. You can't control what your brain does, because at the end of the day, it is imbalances in your brain. It can come from trauma. It could be anything, and everybody's trauma is different. Everybody's trauma level is different. So I think that we just need to appreciate what goes on with other people and be there for them, because if you're there for somebody, then somebody will be there for you. It's like a chain. Like, we've just got to look out for each other and be there for one another, I would say.
I think as well that I think you're right, and I think that the other thing is that most of us will at some point, maybe a number of times, experience some problems in relation to our mental health, and that's life.
Yeah.
And that's okay.
Yeah. Well, our brain is like, just because we can't see our brain doesn't mean that things don't go on in it. Like, it's like the classic thing that we say before, like if you've broke your arm or if you break your leg, you can see it, you can fix it. So I think when it comes to people's minds, we just think, well, I can't physically see what's wrong, and then you become conflicted with yourself. But I think just allow yourself time to, like, just be okay with that and ask for help if you can. And if you know somebody's struggling, to ask for help, but you know they're struggling, like, read up about what you're realising. You can call up mental health hubs, things like that, and just kind of do it that way, I would say. I don't know if that helps.
I think you're right, and I think being conscious of it and also being conscious of our own well-being and what can influence that in a good way or a way that we can see that we're taking a bit of a tumble. I think that can be quite helpful. And I think the other thing, there was a campaign some years ago, which was an NHS and Mind campaign, which was about mental health in the workplace, time to change. And basically it was about recognising that we can all put on a happy face in certain circumstances. In fact, there was a fantastic video that was about that. People coming into the office wearing a photograph on a mask of their face with a smile on it, but they were not smiling, really. I think that sort of being conscious of the fact that, what we're saying might not be the way we're feeling.
Yeah, it's so true.
And don't always take it at face value, to quote a phrase.
It's true.
So there might be something else going on.
Yeah.
Listen to what's not being said.
Yeah, and I think as well, like, there is actually a lot of people out there that will just put on, like, a thick skin and just fake it till they make it. But I think just don't carry it all on yourself. Like, don't put that pressure on yourself, because there are things out there that will support you, even if you feel like almost in a way too proud to let that guard down. Like I was saying earlier, we've got Carers Corner and Northamptonshire Carers, but also, which is for looking after a loved one, but there's other things out there for yourself, like there is Mind and things like that. We've got like crisis cafes and all sorts of stuff, and just talking to a friend or a loved one and be really honest about how you feel, because you're not going to be judged for it, because just remember how you feel right now is how somebody else is feeling towards themselves. Like, we all have our own thing going on, so it's okay to talk about it, because people will be able to, like, maybe resonate with you and and support you.
I know it is daunting. It must have been, as you were saying earlier, daunting to sort of think, well, there's Carers Corner, but can I really go there?
Yeah.
But I think that it's this thing maybe sometimes of being kinder to other people, but also kinder to ourselves, and think, well, actually, we don't have to be able to cope with everything.
No.
There are things that we need support with, or we might need other people to help us with, and that's okay.
Yeah.
But sometimes I think that sort of independence or anxiety about admitting to not really sort of being able to carry on with things on our own without a bit of help is the thing that gets in the way. So maybe that would be good if we could just sort of extend that kindness to ourselves a bit.
Yeah, I think so. And I think as well, one thing that really helped me, what I remember, is when my sister first started getting poorly, I was working like full time, and I felt I wasn't being able to like do the best for my sister at that time because I was working so hard, and I had an expectation from my boss at the time where I used to work, and expectations from like my mum, my sister. I just felt like I had all these expectations to fill, and I remember saying to my boss at the time, this is again where I used to work, and I said, I think I need to drop a day at work. I need to drop a day. I think I can afford to drop a day. I need to just have time for me.
Yeah.
And at the time, it was very taboo. It was like, you don't have kids though. Like, why do you want that day off kind of thing? And I was like, I really think I need it. And he was like, okay, you can have it. And like, I was fortunate enough to be able to do that. And I felt that dropping that one day allowed me to have time for me. And I think the important thing is make sure you give yourself time. Like, even if it's like waking up and going to your favourite coffee shop, like do something really kind to you.
Yeah, it can be quite simple stuff, can't it? Sometimes like that, or making time to read a book, or watch your favourite TV programme, or listen to music you really like, or take a walk or whatever.
Exactly, little things like that. And then if you feel that in that position you can't do that and you are blocked from doing that, that's when you can call like the mental health helpline and don't feel ashamed to do it. Yeah. Like just do it, because we have all been there in some point and all know somebody that's done that kind of thing.
Thanks so much for your time to just sort of talk so openly about your experience.
I think if I could say anything, just believe in yourself, go with your gut, follow your heart, and do everything that you can. If you know that you're right, which you probably are, then just keep pushing and don't ever give up on it, I'd say.
I think that's a great point to end. Thank you.
Let's move on now to Young Adult Carer of the Year. The winner of this award is a carer for his brother who has autism, cerebral palsy and epilepsy. He often deals with his seizures in a calm and organised manner. He'll wait for the ambulance, making sure his brother is comfortable and safe, and even notices the seizures before anyone else does. They've also helped to care for their mum when she was very poorly with breast cancer. They love that they have for each other as brothers. It is beautiful to see. He supports his mum every day, and is also very aware when his mum is tired and likes to make her a cup of tea whilst she rests. He is an all-round, kind, caring and thoughtful young man who will always put his brother and mother before himself and before anything else. He's a very thoughtful person, loves his family, and nothing is ever too much, which is why he deserves this award, to show how much his family appreciate everything he does and to show how proud they are of him. So, 2023 Young Adult Carer of the Year, Charlie Goodman.
Hi, Charlie.
Hello. I'm
talking to you at the end of the awards for Carer of the Year 2023. And there might be a bit of background noise in here because we're in the cafe, Malton Community Centre, where the awards took place. And you won the Young Adult Carer of the Year award, and I just wondered how it felt to get that award this afternoon.
I think it felt really good, and it was quite surprising because I kind of came in with the expectation that I might not win anything, and that's okay. Yeah. So it was a very pleasant surprise to actually win something, and it kind of made me come out of my comfort zone as well, because I was up there and I kind of all these people were hearing about kind of my story and our stories and everything. It's just it felt very good to get it out there and have people hear it and see it.
Because I think that something that came through the whole of the afternoon really was the fact that lots of things that as a young adult carer, a young carer, an adult carer that you do kind of goes unrecognised quite often, doesn't it, really? So that must have been, as you say, sort of out of your comfort zone in one sense, but good to sort of be recognised in that way, and for other people to kind of understand what you do.
Yeah, it was nice to see other people kind of like expanding their perspective as well, and kind of, you know, seeing what it means to be like a young carer and everything. So it helps them as much as it helps me as well. So that's nice to see.
So congratulations, Charlie Goodman, Young Adult Carer of the Year 2023.
Thank you very much.
Before we do our very final award, I didn't realise when I started doing the award ceremonies, because I've done a few of these now, and I didn't realise when I started doing this the extent to which quite a lot of young people end up in a caring situation and probably don't get the sort of recognition they deserve, because as a young person you're trying to think of all your exams, what's going to happen next in your education, and maybe you're into sport and all this sort of thing, maybe you're part of a band. And you need to do all those things, you want to do all those things, but that takes time. And you find yourself on top of all of that with the pressure of caring for somebody. And having to learn a lot of things from scratch, like what to do in the event of a seizure, for instance. Having to know exactly what to do, because that can be quite a scary thing to look at. And these young people that we've met at many, many award ceremonies, they seem to take it in their stride somehow. You know, it doesn't faze them, they just get on and do what needs to be done. And it's extraordinary, the levels of dedication. Which brings me to our final award winner for Young Carer of the Year. The winner of this award was nominated by her mother. And the winner of this award is 6 years old. Her mother said, "I'd like to nominate my beautiful daughter because at the age of just 3 she started caring for me. As Mummy became more poorly and struggled more, she was always by my side," she says. "It started with small things like helping me to bed or getting me water when I was in the bathroom unwell, to helping me with dressing. She didn't even know what she was doing. As I became more unwell, she became more supportive. As she started school in 2021, she struggled with being separated from me because she was worried that I would be unwell. Mother says we were lucky and the school signposted us to young carers. She's helped me since, having a little brother, by supporting every day in doing jobs within her means. And she's never complained when she's been unable to attend things like birthday parties for her friends. She helps around the house, she's always smiling, she's a light in everyone's day, she'll help anyone. She has friends with anxiety, and she's the very first person to take their hand and reassure them. She is such a bright, beautiful star, says Mother, and has taken the last 3 years in her stride. So, Young Carer of the Year 2023 is Alice Horvath.
Can I just get you to say anything you like into that microphone, just so I can check that the level's okay? Just say anything you like.
Hello.
That's good.
Unicorn.
That's good. Hi, Alice. You'll be fine. If you just do it the same way that you said unicorns, that would be fantastic. All right.
Ready? You've been shy.
No. Would you rather not do it? Fair enough.
Do you want Mummy to say something?
How about that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Suddenly got shy.
When people are presented with a microphone, it often happens. Really, really good to be joined by Alice, who is not really wanting to have a chat right now. Alice, you've won Young Carer of the Year, and your mummy is going to say something about that.
Yes, I mean, obviously we're so proud of you, Alice, and I was really genuinely quite surprised in a positive way. It was such a lovely thing to hear the nice words that I've said about you, and to obviously hear how you know how much your child does, but when you hear those words back, it's another thing. So, yeah, we're so proud of her. She does an amazing job at home, and she looks after me so well.
That's fantastic, and just 6 years old as well.
Yes, and she started so young, unintentionally, so I was poorly when I was pregnant with her brother, and she would see her father caring for me,
Yeah.
and she would then get involved and start taking over that role from him so he could do other things, and she wanted to do that.
Yeah,
And that was
yeah.
amazing. So yeah, I'm so proud.
I think the balloons are winning out over over the microphones, aren't they?
Priorities.
But congratulations, Alice.
Congratulations, darling.
And October is Black History Month. And on the first episode of the podcast, episode 1 back in February, I went out to Norma Watson's home and had a conversation with her about her work in the community, her life, and her poetry. She'd written a volume of poems, which is highly recommended. And it felt fitting to really go back to that and take an extract from that conversation. Do check out the full conversation with Norma if you haven't done so, by the way, where she reads one of her poems, Some. And I think that this is particularly striking as Black History Month for 2023 is focused around saluting our sisters. And since recording that conversation, Norma sadly died. So in tribute to her, and also, as I say, in recognition of Black History Month, we'll be playing out Norma reading Some from her volume of poetry.
Some, written by Norma Watson. Some came by boats, some came by planes. That is the way the journey was made. Some was light, could pass for white, brown, dark brown, black, from the hills, from the valley, uptown, downtown, trench town, bridge town. Some speakers spoke it, some hoity-toity, and no island left untouched. Men in suits with gold teeth, ladies in hats, hair straightened, not a curl inside. The grip firm and held, children dressed like mom and dad with tear-stained faces. What lies ahead? Speculation, desperation, anticipation. The aim was all the same, and the one thing for sure, the streets are paved with gold. Double wrapped is the roast breadfruit, the passport, and the piece of paper with the address currently placed together in an envelope. The grip firmly held. Heathrow, Gatwick, and Southampton were kept busy with the new arrivals. Business was booming. Some found fame, some found fortune, some were guests at Her Majesty's pleasure. And when gold could not be found, ended up in jackets which kept them straight. An injection now and then given to keep them calm. Men on the prowl for wives, women looking for good providers. Now, 5 years later, some went back. Some stayed and made the best of it. Some went back in a box. 10 years later, one day. 20 years later, one day. 10 years later, who knows me now? There anyway, my last cousin died the other day. The dances and house parties stopped as the cemeteries fill up, and aching bones can no longer do the scat and mashed potato. Not too much talk now of going back home, just talk of the home in the sky. Going to the day center, sitting in the armchair, doing Tai Chi, even having meals on wheels. Yams and bananas, too hard to digest. Rice and peas burn my stomach. A little spud will do. Men once with gold teeth now have no teeth. Women once with straightened hair make do with what's left. Men wash and go, and children are old and thinking of putting parents in care homes. BMWs are exchanged for Zimmer frames and wheelchairs, and mobility scooters are the in thing. The Volkswagen is now propped up with a walking stick, and the voice which once sang with John Old now keeps in tune with when the roll is called upon, I'll be there. And which once had red stripe and white rum now shake as its medication is taken. The bold voice which once asked, "What time you coming round late?" now complains when the tucking service is late. I have to sleep at a certain time, or I can't sleep. Sure. Pert bosoms now sad. I just can't find the right size bra. One's flat bellies now bulge. Chairs groan with excessive weight. I don't eat much, you know. Any more potato pudding left? You drink all the carrot juice. Forgive me, Beverly. I promised to send for you. I was a young, hot-blooded man. I followed the rest. Mama said every day for 6 months you went to the post office to collect letter with the passage money. So sorry, Bev. Never. The last letter you sent said, "Gold or no gold, England is too cold for me, and I'm not coming." Then 1 month later, you married Winsome, my best friend, and went to America. Oh, by the way, the baby was a boy who turned out good. He's my right hand. I never married. I kept hoping one day. Now, some have stroke, suffer with dementia, high blood pressure, low blood pressure, bad nerves, bad heart, bad hand. No foot, 1 foot, bad chest, and sneezing. Look around. The planes and boats brought a people who brought a legacy. Some got the gold, but we all got the snow.
And the last item this month takes us back to World Mental Health Day, which was on the 10th of October. And it's a conversation that I recorded a while ago, actually, and I've been wanting to feature it in a podcast, but it feels very timely to do it this month. Conversation with Jo Baker, who is a social prescribing link worker for our spring or social prescribing service here at Northamptonshire Carers. And it's Jo telling a story of somebody's experience of using the service and gaining support from it. And it certainly picks up some themes that are relevant to World Mental Health Day. And here's Jo Baker, one of the social prescribing link workers, with the words of someone who's benefited from the support of the service.
So I've been a social prescribing link worker since June 2021, working for Northamptonshire Carers. We work with anybody over the age of 18 that has one or more long-term health conditions. We work with that person to try and support to improve their well-being and find out what matters to them, and trying to connect them to their community and get out in groups and do some nice activities.
I know that you also wanted to give a bit of feedback in the way of almost like a story, really, for somebody that's actually benefited.
Yeah, I'd love to. Okay, so last year we got a referral from Northamptonshire Carers. It was for a carer who was currently unemployed. His physical health was okay, he felt, but he struggled with low mood. He felt that he needed to focus more on himself and find a purpose outside of his caring role. So we worked with him to find out what matters to him, what's important to him. And a couple of the things that he wanted to do was he wanted to meet new people and get out more. He wanted support to update his CV and look for a job in a new sector. He was hoping to find something in social care, which he hadn't done before, which led him to then want to do some volunteering in places so that he could get a better understanding of different job roles that were available that might be of interest to him. And he wanted to try and support his mental health by just doing things that could connect him with other people and get a bit more enjoyment out of life. So we worked with him for a 12-month period. Within that, we spent a lot of time just having conversations, just what matters to him, what does he enjoy. He had a dog. He used to really enjoy walking his dog. He felt that kind of getting out the house, he was able to clear his head. And we spoke about different options available, dog walking groups around the county that he could attend. Also, a website called Borrow My Dog, which a lot of people use. Not many people have heard of it, but it is quite popular. It's fantastic. You can actually post a picture of your dog up there, talk about everything your dog enjoys, and it supports people who maybe can't get out of the house as much, but they want their dog to go out on a walk, or for people who want to walk a dog but can't have a dog due to work or their life situation, they can't actually own a dog. So we spoke about different things like that, and then actually we spoke about setting up our own dog walking group within Spring. He wanted something local where he could meet people that he could be in contact with outside of group walking as well, a new friendship circle. So we set up a dog walking group called Positivity, which I just absolutely adore. It's every Friday morning at 9:30 at Croyland Park. We just do a short walk. The reason that we chose that location was parking, central, it's a flat area, there's lots of benches around as well, so if people come on the walk but they can't manage the whole walk, there's a bench that they can sit down on. You don't have to have a dog to come along, you just, as long as you're comfortable around dogs and you want to be outside, you're more than welcome. It's a lovely group, it's really nice. And then there's a WhatsApp group as well where people that can then stay in contact outside of the dog walking group and also let each other know if it was cancelled due to health and safety because it's icy outside. But even if it's raining like it was this morning, we still put on our welly boots and our rain jackets and still go out. And he's actually our volunteer now at that group, so it's lovely. So we set up that together. We gave him lots of information of different places that could support his well-being. We talked a lot about Wim Hof. He quite liked him, and the breathing exercises. That was something he could do at home. It didn't cost anything to do it. It was something that he could practice on his own and try and improve his well-being. We did referrals to Mind and IAPT as well. We also connected him with a place called Soul Haven. So it's based in Moulton in Northamptonshire, and it's the most amazing, beautiful setting. When you drive in, there's fields filled with sheep everywhere. There's a Mongolian yurt. They do drumming sessions. They work on mindfulness. And he actually attended a course called Ploughing the Mind, which was all about reconnecting with nature. And they also have an allotment there as well that he could get involved in and learn how to grow his own things. Another thing that he wanted was look into new areas of employment. So we worked through different places where he could get support. The first thing he wanted to do was update his CV and get some training. So we put him in contact with the Mallows company and also got him an appointment with the disability employment coach at the DWP. He got some training and some advice from both of those places, and then we looked at different volunteering opportunities available locally to him that fitted around his caring role, but something that he was passionate about. And he applied for a volunteering role. He heard back on the same day that they would love to interview him. He had an interview the following week, and he's now been volunteering there for over 6 months, which it's just fabulous. It's really nice. And his confidence, you could see how much he'd grown in that space of time as well. And, he talks to everybody now, and he walks in a room and he just lights it up. He's fabulous. He also attends our craft-a-noon that we do on a Monday, which is a free craft session that we host at the Hemmingwell Community Centre. He comes along to that, and again, very helpful, talks to everyone in the room. And it's all things that are really important to him. Our job is never to tell somebody what to do. Our job is to listen and work with that person to, put those small bits into your life. We'll always tell you about everything that's available. And then we work with you to, look at what you want to do, what you feel is important.
It must be really satisfying, obviously for him, but for you to see that happening and being alongside him.
Everyone's different, and that's one of the best things. It's such a lovely job to have, because you're working with people with different passions for everything, and it's just really nice. So working with him over the year, he achieved lots of things. I think it got to a point that apart from one day a week, he was doing something every single day, which was very different to where he was when he first came to work. And he knows that he can still contact us at any point, even though we're not doing our one-to-one sessions anymore, and the support is still there and available to him.
Big turnaround, isn't it? That's been really interesting to hear one person's story and how things can change with a bit of support or guidance, listening, active listening, obviously by the sound of it, very much sort of tuning into what he wanted to achieve.
Yeah, absolutely. I think when we first start working with people and we tell people that we can support them for a year, that feels daunting because you don't really know what you're signing up to for a year. But the support is available for up to a year. If you feel that after 3 months, actually, you've got a couple of bits of information of different things that you can go and try, if you feel confident enough to do that on your own and you don't need our help anymore, then that's fine. Or if you feel like you need us there for a longer period of time, we can be.
I think it's those kinds of things are one of the key things that make it all worthwhile, really. Thanks to Joe for telling us about somebody who's clearly benefited from using the social prescribing service. And that pretty much brings us to the concluding moments of this month's podcast. As I mentioned earlier, do get in touch, podcast at northamptonshire-carers.org. You can give us a call on 01933 677 907, or if you come along to one of our groups or cafes, or see us at any point, any of us across the county, and you have an idea for the podcast, have some feedback that you would like to give, just provide that to us and it'll find its way back to myself and my 2 colleagues here at the podcast team.
This podcast is created by Northamptonshire Carers and is a Man with a Beard production.
In the words of Neil Diamond, his later Rick Rubin period of albums, will we be back with the podcast before too long? The answer is definitely hell yeah. Goodbye.